Today I am back in Athens, Georgia, as you can see, and not that long ago, recently, I told the story of Brian Nichols, where he went on a rampage across Atlanta, killing a sitting judge and a court reporter, 2 law enforcement officers, and he injured another. He tried to sexually assault a few women. It was a mess. That story is wild, and I'll link it at the end of this video if you haven't seen it. You should definitely check that one out. But a lot of people don't know that here in Athens, Georgia, they had their own madman who went on a rampage across the city. In the end, 2 people were killed and several others were injured. And then he even held a large number of people hostage for an extended period of time before it all ended live on national television at his behest. It was a crazy time for Athens citizens, and after it all caught up to him, he had his day in court, and he chose to represent himself pro se, so you can only imagine how well that worked out for him. Today, I'm going to be traveling around to all of the locations where this story took place. I'm going to show you the crime scene photos, and we're going to be talking about the 2011 murderous crime spree of Jamie Hood here in Athens, Georgia. It's wild. As I said in the intro, today we're talking about the 2011 rampage that Jamie Hood went on here in Athens, Georgia. Before I jump right into the events of what happened, though, let me give you a little bit of the backstory on Jamie Hood. Now, Jamie really didn't have a hard life growing up. Their family wasn't rich by any means. They didn't have a lot of money, and they struggled to live paycheck to paycheck. But lots of decent people go through that same issue. On top of that, both of his parents were in his life and they were present. The Hood family was very large. Jamie had quite a few brothers and sisters, but both Jamie's twin brother Timothy, and a younger brother of theirs named Matthew, they all went right here to Cedar Shoals High School here in Athens. Both of the twins, Jamie and Timothy, they were on the high school football team, although Jamie didn't get a whole lot of playing time, and in his own coach's words, that was because he had an attitude problem. Jamie's coach said in an interview that he witnessed Jamie's violent behavior firsthand one day when Jamie got into a fight one day while they were having a football practice. Jamie beat another kid so bad that he wound up having to be taken to a hospital, and he missed several weeks of school just trying to recover. Jamie's anger issues didn't get any better after this fight either, though, because Jamie was cut from the football team for this fight and because he was failing several of his classes. So Jamie now had nothing to keep him off the streets, and that's exactly where he went. After being cut from the football team, Jamie got on drugs real bad, and he wound up dropping out of high school. Although he did go back and get his GED later on, he still had nothing to keep him busy. So Jamie had multiple interactions with law enforcement. He was in and out of jail multiple times. And in 1997, at the age of 19, Jamie would take it too far. Jamie was arrested in 97 for armed robbery when Jamie ordered a pizza. When the delivery guy showed up to his apartment, he put a gun to the pizza delivery guy's face and held him up for everything that the guy had on him. $3 and the pizza. For that armed robbery of $3 and the pizza, Jamie was arrested. He was found guilty, and he was given a 12-year prison sentence for the armed robbery. In 2001, while Jamie was still in prison, Jamie's twin brother Timothy was shot and killed by law enforcement. When Timothy was being pulled over by a police officer, he stopped the car and he got out and he ran away on foot in an attempt to get away. Once he realized that he couldn't outrun them, Timothy stopped and he turned around, he pulled a firearm out of his waistband and he pointed it at the officers, forcing them to open fire and shoot Timothy, killing him. Now, days later, after Jamie learned about his twin brother being shot and killed, he blamed the Athens Clark County Police Department for this. He was locked up in prison, so there was nothing he could do. He couldn't go to the funeral, and this affected Jamie for a very long time. He never got over it. In 2009, Jamie's sentence was over and he got out of prison. Because of his violent record, he couldn't get a job anywhere. No one would hire a violent felon, and this led to Jamie becoming a drug dealer. Jamie had gotten a connection over in Atlanta that was selling him huge quantities of drugs, mainly marijuana and cocaine, and he was buying these drugs at below street price, and then he would bring them back here to Athens and he would sell them to the smaller drug dealers for a substantial profit. On December the 28th of 2010, right after Christmas, Jamie found out that one of the people he was selling marijuana to, his name was Kenyatta Campbell. He found out that Kenyatta Campbell had cut him out of a deal and had gone directly to Jamie's source in Atlanta. Now, this infuriated Jamie Hood, but he had no clue where Kenyatta Campbell was. They weren't like best of friends, and he wanted to confront him, but he had no clue how to find him. So Jamie decided to go to another person that bought marijuana from him who knew Kenyatta Campbell. So Jamie got in his car and he drove right here to this home. And the person who lived here's name was Kenneth Amari Ray. Now, Kenneth Amari Ray also bought marijuana from Jamie, and he knew Kenyatta Campbell. Kenneth Amari Ray worked for the Athens Clark County Public Works Department, like on the water and that kind of stuff. So Jamie comes here to the home, and they're standing outside of the house here talking, and Jamie asked Kenneth Amari Ray where he can find Kenyatta Campbell. Once Kenneth Amari Ray says, "I can't tell you that," Jamie becomes irate and he pulls out a firearm and he shoots multiple shots, shooting and killing Kenneth Amari Ray instantly, right here at his own home, right here beside the driveway. No one saw the shooting of Kenneth Amari Ray. No one saw Jamie Hood in the area. So as law enforcement comes here to the scene to try and figure out what happened, they have no leads. And even though it was a brand new murder, it was pretty much cold from the start. No one knew who had done this to Kenneth Amari Ray. So now we're going to fast forward a couple of months to March of 2011. Jamie Hood fills an order for 50 pounds of marijuana to a man named Judon Brooks. This happened right here. It's now an empty lot, but this was Jamie Hood's mother's home. This is where he grew up. Jamie was living here with his mom at the time, and that's why the deal went down here. So after Jamie sells him the 50 pounds of marijuana, Jamie Hood learns that Kenyatta Campbell had again gone behind his back to the guy in Atlanta, cutting him out of a deal that would have made him a lot of money. Again, Jamie Hood is furious. Jamie knows that Judon Brooks also knows Kenyatta Campbell. So Jamie calls up Judon and asks him to come back to his mother's home the next day for another deal. Once Judon arrives back at Jamie's mom's home, Judon goes into the home, and all of a sudden 3 masked men come out of a back room, and they quickly grab Judon Brooks and they force him to the ground. Once they get him down, they duct tape his mouth and they zip tie his hands and his feet so he can't scream and he can't go anywhere. And Jamie demands to know where Kenyatta Campbell is. Judon Brooks tells Jamie that he doesn't know where Kenyatta is, and Jamie loses it. Jamie tells the 3 friends of his to carry Judon out to the car and lock him in the trunk, which they do. And a few minutes later, Judon can hear as they all load up in the cars and start driving. So it's Jamie and Matthew in Jamie's Cadillac with Judon locked in the trunk. And then the 2 other guys, they get in Judon's car and they're driving behind Jamie. Now, Judon Brooks is scared to death at this point. He doesn't know what Jamie Hood is planning to do to him. He's locked up in this trunk and his hands and feet are tied up and his mouth is covered. He's scared he's going to die. And, to this day, we have no clue where Jamie was taking Judon. No clue. He's never said. As they are driving down the road at some point, Judon manages to break the zip ties around his wrist. Once he gets his hands free, he breaks the zip ties off of his ankles so he can move his feet, and he pulls the duct tape off. And when he feels Jamie come to a stop, He pulls the little tab thingy that pops the trunk open if you're on the inside. And as soon as the car comes to a stop at this red light, they're at this intersection right here. The car comes to a stop. Jadon pulls the tag thingy, and the trunk pops open, and Jadon hops out, and he takes off running. And Jamie gets out of the car, and he starts taking a couple of steps like he's chasing after Jadon, but for whatever reason, he doesn't go far. He probably gets going about the length of the car before he stops, and he just walks back to the car, gets in it, and both of the two cars pull off out of this intersection, and Jadon is just running away. Now, fortunately for Jadon, one of Jadon's friends was there, sitting in a line of cars at the same intersection, and he saw the whole thing go down. So he waves to Jadon to come get in his car. Jadon hops in the front seat of his car, and this friend, he pulls a U-turn right there, and he gets Jadon out of the area as quickly as he can. And they drive a couple of blocks away, and they call 911.
I would like to report a kidnapping, a carjacking, and a wrong robbery.
Okay, where are you at?
Luckily, I jumped out the boot of the car.
It didn't take long from the time that Jadon Brooks called 911. Athens Clark County police officers were out looking for Jamie's car and Jadon's car. It was just within a few minutes. Now, Jamie obviously knew this because they ditched Jadon's car. They all loaded up in Jamie's Cadillac, and they drove it to his brother's house and swapped it out for his Suburban. So now Jamie and Matthew are driving around in his Suburban instead of this Cadillac that the police were looking for. As officers are talking to Jadon and learning about what's happened and all that, other officers are out looking for Jamie's car when one of the officers who was driving around, his name was Tony Howard, he spots Matthew Hood in his Suburban, and then he sees in the passenger seat who he believes is Jamie. So Officer Howard hits his lights and the sirens, and he attempts to pull over Jamie and Matthew. So as soon as both cars come to a stop, Jamie and Matthew in the Suburban, Officer Howard in his Athens patrol car, Jamie hops out and he takes off running back to the patrol car. Now, this catches Officer Howard off guard. He's got his driver's window down, but he's kind of caught off guard. So Jamie gets up there. Officer Howard manages to reach out and grab a hold of Jamie by his shirt, but somehow or another, Jamie gets free and he takes a step back, pulling out his firearm at the same time, and he fires several shots into Officer Tony Howard, striking him in the neck and in the head and in his back. For whatever reason, after Jamie shoots Officer Howard, he doesn't go get back in the Suburban, and him and Matthew take off. Now, Matthew really, he don't want nothing to do with shooting police officers, so he sits in the Suburban, and he's got his hands out the window, and he's sitting there waiting. Jamie takes off running down the street in this direction. As Jamie's running down the street, there's another police car sitting on the side of the road. There's an officer in the car. His name was Elmer Christian. They called him Buddy. All right, so Officer Buddy Christian, he's sitting there and he's talking on his cell phone in the car. He's not paying attention to what's going on around him. So he has no clue that Officer Howard had just been shot up the road here and that Jamie Hood is running towards him. So Jamie keeps running, and as he gets up beside the driver's door of this patrol car, Jamie fires several shots right through the driver's door window, striking and killing Officer Buddy Christian instantly. Officer Tony Howard, the first officer he shot, unbelievably, he managed to survive his injuries, and although he had to go through multiple surgeries, he would actually come back and testify against Jamie Hood later on at his trial. But Officer Elmer Buddy Christian, he wasn't so lucky. He died right here on Sycamore Street, sitting in his patrol car. Now, after Jamie Hood shot both of the officers, he continued running the same direction that he was going right here. And he got here to the end of the road, and he ran into the wood line here. So by the time any other officers arrived on scene to help their fallen comrades, Jamie Hood was nowhere to be found. Once officers actually arrived here on Sycamore Street, they panned out and they created a perimeter looking for Jamie. They didn't know where he had gone. They began searching every car and trash cans and every apartment on this road, What law enforcement didn't know, though, was that as Jamie ran through the woods this way, he came out from the woods over here on the other side in this neighborhood. Jamie Hood was running up the street this way when he encountered a woman who was sitting right here at the stop sign, about to turn right, in a silver Geo Prism. As Jamie ran up to her car, he pulls out his gun and he points it at her, and he forces her to unlock the doors, and he hops in the passenger seat, and then he forces her to take off driving with him in the car. They didn't get very far. They drove down the road a little bit, down to this stop sign down here, before I guess Jamie rethought this whole kidnapping thing, and he forces the woman out of the car. He gets out and he comes around and he gets behind the driver's seat, and he squeals tires and takes off, leaving the woman standing right here in the middle of this busy road. This is Epps Bridge Road. This is one of the busiest roads here in Athens. He leaves her standing right here in the middle of this road.
We're being told that the guy, suspect, jacked somebody in a silver Prism.
As law enforcement is scouring the entire city looking for Jamie Hood, they find Judon's car left abandoned. And then they find the car that he hijacked, the silver Geo Prism. They find that car over here off of Airport Road, sitting right here in this wooded area. Now, law enforcement knew that Jamie had family over here near Airport Road. In fact, his mother lives about 2 blocks away from the airport. So their search area, their perimeter changed, and now they started searching this area out here looking for Jamie. By nightfall that night, though, they had searched everywhere, and there was still no sign of Jamie Hood anywhere. Jamie actually managed to hide somewhere in this neighborhood for a good 24 hours without anyone spotting him. At 1 a.m. on March the 24th, he showed up to a friend of his home. This guy's name was Darius Lanier. Now, Mr. Lanier, he had seen the news, he knew what was going on, but he still let Jamie in, and he gave him some fresh clothes and something to eat. But by 4 a.m. that morning, Jamie was gone again, and he was on the run. Darius Lanier did tell his probation officer about the encounter with Jamie, but it was later on that day, many hours after Jamie had left and had gotten a head start. After Jamie left Darius Lanier's home, he found his way right here to this neighborhood, and as he was coming up the road, he spotted a 13-year-old girl coming out of this house right here on the corner. She was about to walk to school. So Jamie approached her. He pulled out his gun and he pointed it at her head, and he told her to get back inside of the home. Now, inside this duplex residence, there were 9 people living in here. All of them knew Jamie and vice versa. There were drug dealers that lived here. They all knew each other. So once Jamie gets inside the residence, he goes around and he forces all of the people in the home back into a back bedroom in the home. He barricades all of them in this bedroom, and all 10 people stayed in this one bedroom the entire day of March 24th. The hostages would later go on to say that throughout the day, Jamie was frantic and he was all over the place. They said that he admitted to them that he had shot both Kenneth Amari Ray and both of the officers, although he did say he was sorry for killing Officer Buddy Christian, but he was glad that he shot Officer Tony Howard, because Officer Howard had been one of the officers that was involved in his 1997 armed robbery that sent him to prison for 12 years. At some point during the day, Jamie used the phone in the home and he called Kenyatta Campbell, and all of these hostages were listening to him. They heard Jamie say, "B word, you better be lucky you got away, because I was going to kill you, just like I did your boy," referring to Kenneth Amari Ray. As you can probably imagine, it was a chaotic scene at this duplex. And on top of that, a couple of drug dealers were living in the house as well. So Jamie spent the entire day smoking marijuana and doing cocaine. until he was beyond unstable. As day turned into night, Jamie Hood was an absolute mess. Now, with multiple drug dealers living in the home, you can probably imagine that there was a lot of transactions going on. There were a lot of people coming and going to this home at all times of the day and night. So Jamie's got all these people locked in the bedroom, and people are coming by to buy drugs. So to avoid suspicion, Jamie allows these dealers to come out of the bedroom to sell their drugs as long as they bring the money back to him. He tells them that if they run, he's going to kill everyone in the home, even the little kids. He allows them to go to the store to buy drinks and that kind of stuff, again saying the same thing. And so no one takes any chances. They all do whatever they're supposed to do and they come back. At some point in the evening, one of the people being held hostage managed to get a text message out to some of their family members saying that they are being held at gunpoint by Jamie Hood. This family member was driving down the road as they received this text message, and they immediately flagged down a police officer and told them. Now, law enforcement knew how bad of a dude Jamie Hood was, and they took it seriously. So within minutes of that text message going out, dozens and dozens and dozens of police officers from Athens, Clark County Sheriff's Department, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, the ATF, dozens and dozens of people, they've all surrounded this home here in this neighborhood. Once law enforcement gets the home surrounded, they use their bullhorns and they let Jamie know that they're out there, and a multi-hour standoff begins between Jamie and law enforcement. At some point during the standoff, Jamie calls his mom. You know, he knows that it's pretty much over. There's nowhere he can go from here. So he calls his mom and he's talking to her, and she tells him that she wants him to turn himself in. She doesn't want him to die. Even if he's locked up, she can still talk to him. So Jamie tells her that he's going to make it out of here alive no matter what. So Jamie himself then hangs up with his mom and he calls 911. So he tells 911 that he doesn't like police and he blames them for his brother dying. So he wants news crews there. He says he'll turn himself in and release the hostages if a news crew is there covering it live on TV.
Athens, Clark County Police.
Yeah, this Jamie Hood. I need to talk to somebody in charge there. Who you got in charge there?
This is Lieutenant Magnuson. Can I help you?
Hey, yeah, hold on. Do you want to keep these folks alive?
Yes, sir.
ALP. Do you want to keep these rest of these folks alive over here?
Yes, sir.
Hold on. I done let two guys go. You get me the news team so they can watch y'all last. I don't trust you.
Okay. Which news team do you want?
Hey, look here. I don't give a hold on. I just get them over this motherfucker right now, cause I feel like this motherfucker playing with me.
Who is that? Who do you think is playing with you?
Hey, look, you gonna do it or not? Yes or no?
I need to work on it. Yes, sir.
Okay, let's get it going then, buddy.
Yes, sir.
So just as requested, news crews start rolling up to the crime scene, and there's a news helicopter flying around above, and they're showing live pictures of the house, and Jamie sees this on the TV. Once he sees it, he allows a couple of the hostages to exit the home just in good faith, and then a short while later, Jamie and all of the hostages exit the home with their hands up in the air. Jamie was like the third person in the line with his hands up. He had no shirt on. And as soon as they come out the door, officers order him to the ground and they handcuff him. And this 4-day standoff, this 4-day rampage that Jamie Hood had been on was finally over. Now, after Jamie's arrest, he was taken to jail, and because of the seriousness of the crimes, he was denied bond, so he had to sit in jail until his trial.
But here he is, right here. Here's Jamie Hood.
You see him, Justin.
Great, Justin. Right here live. Mr. Hood, do you have anything to say? Mr. Hood, do you have anything to say? Anything at all, sir? And there you see it live. Jamie Hood being brought here into the Athens Clark Police Department. Obviously the moment everyone here in this community has been waiting for.
Well, at some point, as his trial was getting closer, Jamie decides that he can do a better job of representing himself than the lawyers are doing it. So he goes to the judge and decides that he's going to represent himself pro se in what would be later called a circus of a trial. Jamie's trial lasted over 3 weeks, where Jamie was charged with over 70 counts, from the December 28th murder of Kenneth Amari Ray to the 4-day rampage between March 22nd and March 26th of 2011. State prosecutors put GBI forensics experts on the stand who testified that they found a shell casing in Jamie Hood's Cadillac, the one that was used with Jadon Brooks tied up in the trunk. They found a shell casing in that car on the floorboard that was matched up and confirmed to be from the same exact gun that was used to shoot Kenneth Amari Ray. That's actually how law enforcement tied him to that crime. They had no clue up until they got this shell casing that Jamie had done this. On multiple occasions throughout the trial, Jamie claimed that the district attorney was fabricating evidence against him. They had Jamie's mother and his younger brother Matthew take the stand. As I said earlier in this video, Officer Tony Howard actually recovered from his gunshot wounds to the face and to the back, and he actually took the stand and faced off with Jamie again to testify against him. But Jamie claimed that since Officer Tony Howard had been involved in his 1997 arrest, that this must mean that Officer Howard had some kind of vendetta against him. And he claimed that he had to shoot Officer Howard in self-defense, otherwise Officer Howard was going to shoot and kill him. On top of that, Jamie Hood actually denied shooting and killing Officer Buddy Christian. He said that he didn't do it, and no one could prove that he did do it, but the state countered by having a GBI expert take the stand and testified that the bullets fired in Officer Howard and the bullets fired in Officer Christian came from the same gun. They also had people take the stand who testified that Jamie admitted to them that he had shot Officer Buddy Christian. The hostages that he held hostage in that final day, they had several of them take the stand and admit that Jamie admitted to it. And then the state had the carjacking victim take the stand. And once it was Jamie's turn to cross, it was wild because Jamie started out by apologizing to the woman for carjacking her and taking her hostage and all that, admitting to it. He told her that he was sorry for putting her through that. The prosecutors then brought back up the people who Jamie had held hostage on that final night, and they testified against Jamie. But once Jamie was able to cross them, he brought up that he let them leave and he let them sell their drugs and they went to the store. So obviously they weren't being held hostage because they were able to leave, but they all came back. At some point during the trial, the state wanted to put Kenyatta Campbell on the stand. But by the time of Jamie's trial, Kenyatta Campbell had been busted by the federal government for trafficking drugs, and he had taken a plea deal, and he was currently serving a 30-year sentence for drug trafficking. So the defense argued against it, and ultimately Kenyatta Campbell never took the stand. Throughout the whole trial, it seemed as if Jamie wasn't really denying anything that happened starting on March 22nd. It was him just blaming everything on things that happened to him in the past. During Jamie's closing arguments, Jamie started off by thanking the jury and the prosecution team and the judge for their service to the community. And in the end, after everything was all said and done, the jury was handed the case. They deliberated for only a couple of hours before coming back and finding Jamie Hood guilty.
State of Georgia versus Jamie Donnell Hood. Count 1, malice murder of Elmer Buddy Christian. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 2, felony murder of Elmer Buddy Christian. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 3, felony murder of Elmer Buddy Christian. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 4, aggravated assault on a peace officer with a deadly weapon of Elmer Buddy Christian. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 5, possession of a firearm by convicted felon. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 6, criminal attempt to commit murder of Tony Howard, we the jury find the defendant guilty. Count 7, aggravated assault upon a peace officer with intent to murder of Tony Howard, we the jury find the defendant guilty.
Immediately, the trial went from guilt phase to penalty phase, where they would basically have a whole nother hearing to determine whether Jamie got life in prison without parole or a death sentence. Again, after that phase of the trial was done, the jury deliberated for a very short amount of time again, and they came back and recommended life in prison without parole. 1 week later, Jamie would have his sentencing, and because of the amount of the charges, like I said, there were, 70 charges here, some of the charges were merged together. And in the end, Jamie was sentenced to life in prison for armed robbery, life without parole for 9 counts of kidnapping, life without parole for kidnapping Jadon Brooks, life without parole for the murder of Officer Buddy Christian, and life without parole for the murder of Kenneth Amari Ray. He would also get an additional, 150 years for 15 counts of possession of a firearm during a felony, attempted murder on Officer Tony Howard, possession of a knife during a crime, aggravated assault on Jadon Brooks, hijacking the woman and her car, and aggravated assault for pointing the gun at that 13-year-old girl's head. So all total, Jamie Hood was sentenced to 4 life sentences without the possibility of parole. He got 1 life sentence with parole, and then 150 years. Jamie Donnell Hood is currently serving his 5 life sentences right here at Hancock State Prison in Georgia, which is where he will reside until he dies. He's about 46 years old right now, so barring some kind of incident in prison, he still has a long life to live locked up behind bars. As I said earlier in this video, Officer Tony Howard survived his injuries, and he would go on to testify at Jamie's trial. He has gone on since then to be promoted several times, and he is a high-ranking officer in the Athens Clarke County Police Department as we speak. He's still working as we speak. Also, as I said earlier, Kenyatta Campbell, the drug dealer who went behind Jamie's back, who really started this whole thing, he is serving a 30-year sentence for drug trafficking right now as we speak. And since this time, Athens has erected several memorials around the area for Officer Buddy Christian, one of which is right here. This road is named after him, and he also has this bridge here right by Sycamore Street named after him. And then right here at the spot where Buddy Christian's patrol car was parked and he was killed, they have also erected this monument in honor of him. Thousands of people showed up to Buddy Christian's funeral to pay their respects, as the whole situation was very tough. It was a tough ordeal for the city of Athens, and a lot of people were scared. No one knew where Jamie was going to turn up and who he was just going to murder next to try and get away. That is going to do it for this one today from here in Athens, Georgia, and the Jamie Hood crime spree here. I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you're new here, go down, hit that subscribe button, then hit that notification bell so you get notified every time I upload a video. Thank you all. I will see you again in the next one. Please, all of you, stay safe and stay healthy. Much love to you all.